There are moments in life when you just know, in a single second, that everything is about to change forever. For me, that moment came on a crisp autumn afternoon, when I got down on one knee in front of the woman I'd loved for 6 years and asked the question I'd been holding in my heart for what felt like forever. Will you marry me? She looked at me with eyes that sparkled, her smile lighting up the world around us, and for a second I nearly forgot how to breathe. Yes, she whispered, and suddenly everything felt weightless, magical, and full of promise. 6 years together, awkward first encounters on campus, late-night walks under city lights, little arguments that ended in long hugs. Everything had led to this moment. I felt my heart both shatter with happiness and tighten with the weight of a lifelong promise. After she said yes, we dove headfirst into wedding planning. Those first days were a bubble of excitement, picking venues, booking caterers, tasting cakes, sending save-the-date cards to friends and family. Every decision, even the smallest, thrilled me. I imagined us walking down the aisle, eyes locked, hearts full of love, and my chest nearly exploding from anticipation. But alongside all that happiness, there was an undercurrent of unease. It came from thinking about her childhood best friend, a guy her age who lived on the same street with her, her companion since they were kids. They'd grown up together, shared everything from silly games and little secrets to weekend adventures. And even before I came into the picture, they were inseparable. I knew he had been a huge part of her life, but the truth was, before me, he'd always been there. I used to feel a twinge of annoyance when he showed up too often during our dates. One time, when it was just the two of us together, he half joked, half seriously said, "If you ever hurt her, I won't let it slide." I laughed, mostly because he was barely taller than me, and his threat sounded absurd. But deep down, I couldn't shake a tiny knot of unease. Did he secretly feel something for her that I didn't know? I remembered the walks we took after class, hand in hand, and how he'd sometimes be off in the distance, laughing with her like it was the most natural thing in the world. I tried to bury the small, nagging jealousy, telling myself it was just the past, that he was her friend and I was her partner now. When I finally asked her about it, she looked me straight in the eye. "He's just a friend," she said, "and he's gay." I nodded, feeling a wave of relief. That was the end of my worst fears, at least on the surface. It wasn't that I had a problem with him being gay. It was more about him being a constant, familiar presence in her life, a part of her that I had to share, a part that I hadn't grown up with. Those first days of planning were filled with both excitement and anxiety. She threw herself into picking colors, bridesmaid dresses, and venues she'd dreamed of for years. I tried to participate, suggesting ideas, but many times she was firm on her choices. I remember suggesting a summer wedding because spring triggered my allergies. She shook her head. "No, spring is perfect. Imagine all the flowers blooming." Her excitement was infectious, and I silently agreed. Swallowing my frustration, we discussed the guest list, music, traditional ceremonies, little details like flowers, invitations, and menus. At first, everything seemed smooth. Then she dropped the bomb. She wanted her childhood best friend, the same guy who had been her companion for years, to be her man of honor, the male equivalent of a maid of honor. I laughed nervously, thinking she was joking. "You're kidding, right?" I asked. But her expression was serious enough to make me stop short, and suddenly a mix of confusion, unease, and a hint of jealousy hit me like a wave. A tiny voice in my head whispered, Why does she want him by her side on the most important day of our lives? Does she still value him more than me? These thoughts, unfounded as they were, crept into my mind like an uninvited shadow. I decided to confront her honestly. Have you ever had feelings for him? I asked, trying to keep my voice calm. She blinked, a flicker of surprise crossing her face, then replied, "No, he's just a friend. And really, he's gay." I exhaled, forcing a small smile, but the unease didn't leave entirely. For the first time, I realized that in a long-term relationship, things are rarely as simple as they seem. Love, even the kind that feels perfect, still faces challenges you might never anticipate. I remembered our early college days, our shared classes, the late-night talks about dreams, books, music, or just wandering the campus together, moments that built an invisible but unbreakable bond between us. I thought 6 years was enough to know each other inside out, but now, one small decision about the wedding made me question everything. I thought I understood. Maybe these moments are what make love truly meaningful, when you face fear, navigate complex emotions, and learn to accept, trust, and even fight for the relationship you value most. And so began the story of love. Jealousy, tradition, choices, and unexpected consequences. A story where even one small decision, like who stands beside her on the wedding day, can change the future of a couple who has been together for 6 years. After the sweet moment of the proposal, we dove headfirst into planning the wedding. At first, everything felt rosy and exciting. We toured venues, sampled cakes, picked music, and debated the little details: flowers, invitations, menus. I thought this would be a fun time for us to share together. But it didn't take long for me to realize that things weren't nearly as simple as I had imagined. She had a very clear vision of the wedding in her mind, and she was steadfast about getting exactly what she wanted. She pictured flowers blooming all around the garden, sunlight filtering through the trees, and all our closest friends and family witnessing our moment. I tried suggesting a few alternative ideas, like having the wedding in summer instead of spring to avoid my allergies, or hiring a DJ who could play music we both liked. But all my suggestions were brushed aside. No, spring is perfect. Look at all the flowers. And a DJ just won't set the vibe. We need a live band. Her confident, definitive response left me silent, nodding along. I realized that her determination was part of who she was. She always knew what she wanted, and once she decided, almost nothing could change her mind. I didn't want to ruin her special day, but I couldn't shake the feeling of being left out. Small debates over flower colors or menu. Choices started to make me feel like I was fighting for a voice in decisions that should have been shared. One of the things that unsettled me the most was choosing the bridal party. She insisted on having her childhood best friend, a guy she had grown up with, stand beside her as her man of honor. At first I laughed, thinking it was a joke, but when I realized she was serious, I felt a mix of surprise and discomfort. It wasn't jealousy in the traditional sense. I knew he was gay, and I trusted her. But what made me uneasy was the history and familiarity. They shared a part of her past that I wasn't part of, a closeness that made me feel like an outsider. Meanwhile, I wanted the people closest to me, like my sister, to stand by me, people I had grown up with, people who had always been there. I didn't voice my feelings immediately. Instead, I threw myself into the planning, trying to keep my emotions from dampening her excitement. But day by day, the small decisions became sparks for minor conflicts. subtle clashes in our ideas about what the wedding should look like. We also discussed ceremony traditions. I wanted to include some of my Cambodian cultural rituals, like a procession bringing the groom's family to the bride, the ceremonial haircut blessing, and the knot-tying ritual for engagement. I had mentioned these ideas early on, but she was adamant about skipping them. Those rituals take too much time and effort. We'll just do a traditional American wedding. I don't want it to feel like 2 weddings in one day, she said. I stayed quiet, feeling that a part of my culture was being left out. But I didn't push. Other small decisions irritated me as well. She changed the color palette from black, gold, burgundy, and forest green to pink, gold, white, and pastel blues to match the outdoor setting. She decided the groomsmen had to wear blazers and bow ties, even though I preferred simple shirts and ties. These changes, though minor, made me feel unheard. I began to realize that this wasn't just about a wedding, it was testing our relationship. 6 years together, thinking we knew each other well, but now every small choice seemed like a battle over control, emotions, and values we each held dear. From her side, I could see the stress too. She often said, "I just want everything to be perfect. This is the most important day of my life." I understood, and I wanted to respect that. But respect became difficult when I felt sidelined, when a piece of my soul and culture seemed unacknowledged. One evening, while we reviewed the guest list and organized the bridal party, I gently asked, "Do you really need him as your man of honor? Can we figure out a way to make both sides happy?" She looked at me with eyes full of both resolve and hesitation. "He's my best friend from childhood. He deserves a special place on our day. He knows me, and I need him there." Her answer hit me like a mix of understanding and sharp pangs. I realized that love isn't just about the 2 of us, it's also about the relationships that existed long before I came along. I knew I couldn't stop her from choosing her friend, but I also couldn't pretend it didn't bother me. In the days that followed, we continued planning cake tastings, flower selections, negotiating with the band and the venue. Every time I suggested something, she responded firmly. Every time I wrestled with feeling left out while trying to stay calm, not letting her excitement turn into tension. Gradually, I understood that a wedding isn't just a celebration, it's a test of love, patience, and understanding. These minor conflicts, if unresolved, could become serious cracks. I realized that from color choices to who stands beside her, every detail carried deep emotions, anxieties, and unspoken disagreements we hadn't faced before. And so, a new chapter began, not just about a wedding, but about our relationship, understanding each other, jealousy, and how 2 people in love navigate the hardest choices of their lives. Even a seemingly small decision, like who stands next to her at the altar, could completely change how we see and understand each other, shaping the future of our relationship. The first few weeks of wedding planning had an outward aura of excitement and anticipation. But beneath the surface, a quiet tension began to rise day by day. Every small decision, from choosing flower colors to picking the band, even deciding on traditional rituals, became an opportunity for unspoken emotions to flare. One evening, sitting together on the couch with 2 glasses of wine, I tried to stay calm. "I think we need to go over the bridal party again. We need to be clear on who's standing where," I said, bracing myself for a question I knew would be tough. "Do you really want him as your man of honor?" She looked at me, serious, unwavering. He's my best friend since childhood. He's not just a friend, he understands me better than anyone. I need him by my side on this day. My chest tightened. This wasn't just about someone's position in the wedding party. It was a reminder that I had never been part of the world of memories she shared with him. Somehow, I still felt like an outsider in a relationship she considered essential. I tried to express my feelings. I'm not trying to make things hard, but this is our day. I want to feel like my input matters too. She frowned. You're talking about your feelings. This is my wedding. I need what feels right for me, and he's an important part of that. Her words hit me like a mirror, reflecting my helplessness. I realized that after 6 years together, I thought we understood each other, but now, a single day could spark deep conflict between us. I felt upset, not because I didn't trust her, but because it seemed like I wasn't fully included in the moments that mattered most to her. The next week, tensions rose again over the color palette. I had envisioned classic, elegant tones, black, gold, burgundy, and forest green. But she decided on pastel shades, pink, soft yellow, sky blue, and white. At first, I sighed and let it go, but gradually, that feeling of helplessness built into something heavier. They're already printed with the old colors, I said gently, trying not to upset her. No problem. We'll just reprint, she replied confidently, with no hint of regret. It'll look better outdoors anyway. I looked at her, my heart a mix of anger and disappointment. For me, this wasn't just about colors, was the feeling that my ideas and desires were being overlooked. I understood her desire for perfection, but she didn't seem to see that perfection in her eyes could mean ignoring my feelings in the following days. I tried to stay calm, accommodating, and supportive through the other preparations, cake tastings, flower selections, listening to the band perform. But quietly, the tension simmered. Every time I saw her laughing with her best friend, with a bond I had never shared, a silent wave of jealousy crept in. I knew I shouldn't feel this way. I trusted her, but these feelings were beyond my control, like a quiet but powerful undertow. One night, while reviewing the detailed plan together, I decided to be direct. I feel like I'm not really part of this wedding. I get that you want everything perfect, but could you maybe hear me out a little? She turned to me, eyes glistening and a little irritated. What are you even saying? I've tried to make this work for you. These are tiny things, and you still want control. Her words left me silent, feeling dismissed. In my mind, these details weren't tiny. They were pieces of the bigger picture, shaping the wedding day. I wanted it to reflect both of us. Not just her vision, but she didn't seem to recognize that. The next day, I tried another approach. Maybe there's a way for both him and my sister to have a special role. I want both of you to be happy. She shook her head, resolute. He's my childhood best friend. My sister doesn't replace him. I need him by my side, the person who understands me best. The rejection stung, leaving me both heartbroken and bewildered. I felt caught between two worlds. One, the person I loved, and two, a sense that I had never been fully understood. I realized that not everyone sees things the same way, and the values we hold dear can clash in ways that words can't easily reconcile. The tipping point came when we started talking about traditional ceremonies. I wanted a Cambodian procession where the groom's family comes to the bride's house, along with the haircutting blessing and the tying the knot ceremony. I explained carefully the meaning and the emotional significance behind each ritual, but she flatly refused. Those ceremonies take too much time. You know, I want a traditional American wedding, not 2 celebrations in one day. It felt like my heart had been squeezed. This wasn't just a rejection of a ritual, it felt like a dismissal of a piece of my culture, a piece of who I am. Yet, when I wanted to push back, I stayed silent, because I didn't want the wedding to become a battlefield. In the following days, the tension between us continued to grow. Every discussion, no matter how small, became a potential argument. I felt excluded from important decisions, while she felt I was complicating everything she had envisioned. As the wedding day drew closer, these suppressed feelings became harder to control. I realized love isn't just about happiness, and romance, it's a challenge. A test of understanding, compromise, and accepting deep differences. And so, the first real conflict erupted, not in a dramatic shouting match, but in simmering tension, disagreements about who would stand by her, the colors, the rituals, and countless other details. These small decisions suddenly became the spark for complex emotions, tangled between love and jealousy, determination and compromise. The love story that had seemed so solid over 6 years was entering a new chapter, a chapter filled with challenges, intense emotions, and decisions that could change the course of their future forever. The tension had been building for weeks, subtle at first, like a low hum beneath the excitement of wedding planning. At first, it was just minor disagreements: flower colors, the style of invitations, the playlist for the reception. But little by little, these small irritations began to pile up, revealing something more dangerous: a gap in understanding, in expectations, and in respect. It started one quiet Saturday morning. We were in the living room, laptops open, lists of guests and wedding party members spread across the table. I noticed a name written next to hers, her childhood best friend, marked boldly as man of honor. A twist of unease coiled in my stomach. "I think we need to talk about this," I said carefully, trying to keep my voice steady. She looked up, almost cheerfully. "Oh, it's just a note. Don't worry about it." "It's not just a note," I said, my chest tightening. "I don't want him as your man of honor." Her smile vanished instantly. "Wait, what?" I don't feel comfortable," I admitted. "It's tradition. Bridesmaids are usually women, and honestly, I don't really know him. I feel a little left out of this decision." Her eyes narrowed, and for a moment I could see the shock and hurt reflected in them. "Left out? Are you serious? We've been talking about this wedding for months, and now you suddenly care because he's a man. It's not about gender." I tried to explain, but the words felt inadequate, fumbling. "It's about tradition, comfort, and I just don't feel like I know him the way you do." She laughed, but it was sharp, almost bitter. "So, let me get this straight. You've let me choose the flowers, the band, the color scheme, and countless other things without complaint. And now this is what pushes you over the edge." I felt my own anger flare, but mixed with frustration and hurt. It's not about control. It's about feeling like my voice matters, too. I've compromised on everything else. Why can't I have this one thing? Because it's my wedding. She snapped, rising from her chair. "You think it's all about you. I get to have what I want, too. He's my best friend, the person who knows me better than anyone else. You think your discomfort is more important than my happiness." Her words landed like a punch. I felt a surge of jealousy and sadness, realizing that no matter how much I had tried to be fair, my feelings seemed invisible. "I just want us both to feel included," I said, my voice trembling slightly. I don't want to fight, I want to feel like my opinions count. You've counted my opinions? She asked sharply, her voice tight. You've been fine with everything else, haven't you? So why this one? Why him? I can't explain it, I admitted, feeling a knot in my stomach. It's not about him. It's about me, I feel. Inadequate, maybe. Out of place. Left out of something that's important to both of us. Her expression softened briefly, but then hardened again. And you think I don't understand that? I love him like a brother, and I need him there. You have your sister. That should be enough for you. The room was silent for a long moment, the tension thick enough to touch. Both of us were breathing hard, hearts pounding, emotions raw. I realized then that this argument wasn't about a best friend or gender or tradition. It was about respect, inclusion, and the perception of fairness. Each of us felt our needs ignored, our perspectives dismissed. The fight escalated further when I tried to bring up other details of the wedding. What about the color scheme? I asked. You changed it to pastels. Invitations are already printed. I wish we'd talked about it first. It looks better this way, she said, dismissive. We can reprint. No big deal. I wanted to scream. No big deal. To you maybe, but it feels like nothing I care about matters. Her eyes flashed with anger. You think everything is about you. Maybe this wedding isn't what you want. Maybe you're just looking for reasons to complain. I sat back, stunned by the sharpness of her tone. I'm not trying to ruin anything. I love you. I want this wedding to be perfect for both of us. Perfect for you, maybe, she whispered, tears brimming. I feel like everything I want is wrong, and everything you want is right. That's not fair. I swallowed hard, the weight of her words settling into my chest. I realized that love wasn't just about joy and excitement. It was about handling disappointment, compromise, and emotional vulnerability. And we were both failing at that right now. By evening, the argument had reached its peak. She stood up abruptly. I can't do this right now. I need space. She grabbed her keys and walked out the door, leaving me sitting alone in the quiet apartment. The door clicked shut, and I was left with a mix of guilt, fear, and helplessness. I called her parents, hoping for guidance, but their disappointment was palpable. You can't be making decisions that hurt her, her mum said gently but firmly. This is her day too. You need to respect that. I tried to explain, but I could hear how my words sounded, defensive, controlling, inflexible. Perhaps I had been too rigid. Perhaps I had misread my own emotions and projected them in the wrong way. That night, I sat in the dark, replaying the fight over and over. Each word, each gesture seemed magnified, a reflection of our deeper issues. I realized that if we didn't address these feelings, now this mix of insecurity, jealousy, and misunderstanding, our wedding day, and even our relationship could be at risk the next day. I went to her parents' house. She was on the porch, arms wrapped around herself, staring into the distance. I approached slowly. Can we talk? I asked, my voice soft. I don't know if we can, she whispered. I don't want to fight, I said. I want us to figure this out. I don't want to lose us over this wedding. Her head dropped into her hands. It doesn't feel like we're figuring anything out. It feels like you're trying to control me. Like everything I want is wrong. I swear it's not about control, I said. I feel like I'm being left out, that my feelings don't matter." Her tears fell, and mine joined hers. For a moment, silence enveloped us, fragile and heavy, yet comforting. We realized something fundamental. Love was more than happiness. It was compromise, understanding, and seeing each other fully, flaws, fears, and all. As the sun set, we sat together quietly, still apart in our thoughts, but together in space. The first real fight was over, but the lessons had begun. We knew the wedding planning was just the surface underneath. The deeper challenges of love, communication, and trust awaited. This was not the end. It was only the beginning of navigating what it truly meant to share a life, to compromise without losing oneself, and to protect a bond that had endured 6 years, but would now be tested like never before. The morning after our first real fight, the apartment felt empty even though I was alone. Every corner seemed to echo with what had happened the night before. The slammed laptop, her sharp words, the pounding of my own heart as I tried to hold back tears. I had replayed every moment, every phrase, searching for some hidden clue about where it had all gone wrong. I was scrolling through the wedding checklist, trying to distract myself when my phone buzzed. A text from her. "I'm staying at my parents' tonight." I froze. My stomach tightened. The thought of her out of reach, with her family possibly filling her head with interpretations of our fight, made me anxious. I wanted to call her, to beg her to come back, to explain myself. But something inside whispered, "Let her cool down first." Hours passed. I stared at my phone, each minute feeling like an hour. Every ring of a notification made my heart leap. I was painfully aware of the fine line we were walking. One more misstep, one more word said in anger, and we could fracture completely. By late afternoon, I decided I had to try. I drove over to her parents' house, rehearsing in my head every possible way to explain myself without making it worse. When I arrived, she was on the porch, looking small and fragile, her arms wrapped around herself. The wind tugged at her hair, and for a moment I hesitated, unsure if I had the right to interrupt her solitude. "Can we talk?" I asked, keeping my voice low. She didn't look at me. "I don't know if we should," she muttered. I swallowed. "I don't want to fight. I want to try to fix this." She finally lifted her gaze. Her eyes were red-rimmed, tear-stained, and full of hurt. "Fix it? You don't get it, do you? You've been controlling everything from the start. First the colors, then the music, now my best friend. It's like nothing I want matters." I felt a pang of guilt. She was right in many ways. I had been trying to assert my own comfort, my traditions, my sense of order, but at what cost? Her happiness, her voice, her choices. I see that now, I admitted. I didn't realize how much my actions were hurting you. I thought I was just trying to help, trying to make things fair for both of us. But I can see how it came across differently. I'm sorry. Her hands tightened around her knees. You say that, but it doesn't undo the fact that you've been dismissing me. It doesn't undo that you made me feel like my family, my friends, my choices don't matter. I sat down beside her, careful not to invade her space. I know, and I hate that I made you feel that way. I love you, I don't know how to handle this. I feel like I'm losing my voice, too. That my opinions, my comfort, my traditions, they don't matter either. She shook her head slowly, her lips trembling. It's always about tradition with you, isn't it? You're so worried about the rules, the customs, the way things should be, that you forget what this is actually about." Her words cut deeper than I expected. I had always believed that traditions gave us structure, a shared path to follow. But she was right. A wedding wasn't just a set of rituals. It was a celebration of love, of union, of compromise. And in trying to enforce my sense of rightness, I had been blind to her needs. "I don't want to lose us," I said, my voice breaking. "I know I've made mistakes, but I love you. I want this to work. I don't want to call off the wedding. I don't want us to break up. I need us to listen to each other." She looked away, her eyes glistening. "You say that, but actions speak louder than words. You've been making decisions that affect both of us, and then you act like my feelings are secondary. It's exhausting. I don't know if I can do this anymore." My chest tightened. I realized this was it, the moment I had feared. The breaking point. Her voice, normally warm and familiar, sounded distant, almost unreachable. I wanted to grab her, to hold her, to promise that everything would be okay, but I knew that would be selfish. She needed space, even if it hurt me. Maybe we need to take a step back," I said softly, my voice barely above a whisper. "Not forever, just to breathe, to think, to figure out if we can meet in the middle." Her eyes filled with tears again. "Maybe," she whispered, uncertainty in her tone. "Maybe we do." We didn't hug. We didn't talk much after that. We sat side by side, the silence thick but necessary. Both of us knew that the next few days would be critical. Every decision, every word, every interaction could either rebuild or destroy the fragile bridge between us. Later that evening, I went home, the weight of the day pressing down on me. I stared at the wedding checklist again, but it no longer seemed like a list of fun tasks or creative choices. It was a reminder of how fragile love could be when communication failed. I realized that this wedding hour dream day wasn't just about aesthetics or tradition. It was about trust, compromise, empathy, and seeing each other as equals. The next few days passed in a blur of tension and quiet reflection. We texted occasionally, brief messages that were careful not to provoke anger. I spent hours thinking about how I could make amends, how I could show her that I respected her voice, her choices, and her friendships. I knew that the future of our relationship depended not on the wedding itself, but on our ability to communicate and compromise. When she finally returned to the apartment, we sat down and began the slow, careful process of untangling the mess we had created. We talked about feelings we had never fully expressed before: insecurities, jealousy, fears of being left out or unheard. We admitted where we had been unfair, stubborn, or controlling. And slowly, ever so slowly, we began to see a path forward. It wasn't perfect. The fight hadn't been erased. The hurt hadn't vanished. But, for the first time, we acknowledged the truth that love required work, that relationships required empathy, compromise, and vulnerability. By the end of that week, we agreed on one thing: we would pause the wedding planning for now, not because we were giving up, but because we needed to rebuild our foundation first. We would seek couples counseling, learn to navigate disagreements without resorting to emotional standoffs, and approach every wedding decision as a team equally. And perhaps most importantly, we promised ourselves that we would no longer let fear, jealousy, or stubbornness dictate our actions. This fight, this breaking point, had shown us how fragile our love could be, but also how strong it could become if we truly committed to understanding each other that night. As I lay in bed, I thought about the fight, the walkout, and the long days of silence. I realized that the wedding wasn't the most important thing. We were. And if we could survive this storm, truly survive it, then maybe, just maybe, we could create a life and a wedding that honored both of us equally. The days after our temporary separation felt surreal. There was an emptiness in the apartment that neither of us could fill. Yet somehow, that emptiness became a space for reflection. I spent hours pacing, trying to dissect my own behavior. I had always believed that compromise was about picking and choosing battles. But the fight over her best friend had revealed something deeper, that love was more about understanding and supporting each other than about who was right or wrong. I started small. I revisited the wedding checklist, not to plan the perfect day, but to remind myself of what really mattered, our connection. Every flower choice, every seating chart, every color scheme, none of it mattered if we couldn't communicate without resentment. Meanwhile, she was taking time with her family, processing her own emotions, and I could sense that she, too, was reflecting on what had gone wrong. The texts we exchanged were short, careful, and sometimes awkward, but they had a new honesty to them. Gone were the defensive tones, replaced with tentative curiosity about the other's perspective. One evening, I decided to visit her, not to argue, not to plead, but to simply be present. She greeted me at the door, and for a moment we just stood there, measuring the air between us. The fight still lingered, but so did the love that had sustained us for 6 years. "I've been thinking," I began, my voice low, about how I reacted, and I realized I was selfish, in a way. I focused too much on tradition, on my comfort, and not enough on your happiness. Her eyes softened, though they glistened with unshed tears. "I know I can be stubborn too," she admitted. "I wanted things my way because I felt unheard in the past, I guess." We were both defending ourselves instead of listening to each other. And that was the breakthrough. Not a magical solution, but the acknowledgement that we were both human, flawed, and scared. We realized that the fight had never been about her friend or colors or flowers. It had been about fear, insecurity, and miscommunication. Over the next few days, we made a deliberate effort to rebuild. We set aside hours each evening to talk, really talk, without wedding distractions. We discussed everything, not just the logistics of the ceremony, but our expectations, our fears, our dreams for the future. We revisited the disagreements over the band, the invitations, the ceremony traditions, and I explained why some of those elements mattered to me. She, in turn, shared why her childhood friend's presence was non-negotiable for her. Slowly, we learned the art of compromise. I agreed to let her best friend be the man of honor, not as a concession, but as an act of respect for her feelings. And she, in turn, agreed to participate in some of my cultural wedding traditions, even if she wasn't entirely comfortable, understanding that it mattered to me deeply. There was a moment that stood out, a quiet evening when we sat on the balcony, the city lights stretching out beneath us. We laughed about our fight, realizing how absurd some of our arguments had been in hindsight. But the laughter was tempered by humility. We recognized that love wasn't about perfection. It was about learning to navigate imperfection together. We also took the step of involving professional guidance. Couples counseling became a safe space to voice frustrations, uncover hidden insecurities, and practice empathy. For the first time, we were not just reacting to one another, but actively listening and responding with understanding. We discovered patterns in our behavior that had fueled past conflicts, my tendency to control decisions in the name of tradition, her inclination to resist suggestions in the name of autonomy. This rebuilding process wasn't linear. Some nights ended in tears, some mornings in awkward silences. But each challenge became a small victory, reminder that love required effort and patience. I made a conscious effort to connect with her friends, including her best friend. At first, it felt strange. We had never spent much one-on-one time together, and I carried the residue of my earlier jealousy. But as we shared stories and laughed over childhood memories, I realized he was simply a loyal, supportive friend who had always been there for her. The realization was liberating. My fear had been unfounded. She, meanwhile, made strides toward my family and my cultural background. She attended small ceremonies, asked questions about traditions, and even participated in cooking and decoration rituals that had initially intimidated her. Each step she took demonstrated a willingness to understand the world. I came from Mand. I recognized it as an act of love and respect. After several weeks, we returned to the wedding planning, but it was different this time. We approached every decision as a team, weighing both perspectives and finding creative compromises. The colors of the decorations became a blend of our tastes. The music included both her favorite genre and mine. Even the seating arrangements and ceremony order reflected a balance of our families, friends, and traditions. It was not perfect, but it was authentic. And that authenticity carried a new kind of energy, one that excited us, instead of dividing us. We learned that the wedding was not just about a day of celebration. It was a reflection of our relationship, our growth, and our ability to overcome challenges together. One evening, as we reviewed the final draft of our guest list, she smiled at me, her eyes bright with gratitude. "I'm glad we didn't give up," she said softly. "Neither am I," I replied, taking her hand. "I think we're stronger because of it." And in that moment, I realized that the walkout, the fight, and the weeks of tension had not destroyed us. Instead, they had forged a deeper connection, a bond built on communication, empathy, and mutual respect. We were no longer two people fighting for their own way. We were a team, ready to face not just the wedding, but life itself, together. The first days after we got back together felt strange, familiar, yet foreign. The apartment no longer echoed with the aftermath of our fights, but it wasn't exactly peaceful either. Instead, there was a cautious, deliberate rhythm to everything. Careful words, tentative glances, probing questions, and slowly, a rebuilding of trust. We both knew that if we wanted to save our love, if we wanted to move toward a happy marriage, every decision, every action from now on had to be carefully considered. There was no longer a sense of who was right or wrong. Instead, it became a matter of who could listen and understand better. One afternoon, we sat at our favorite coffee shop discussing the music for the wedding. Previously, this would have been a battlefield. I wanted a live band to play traditional pieces. She wanted a DJ for her favorite genre. This time, instead of reacting automatically, we started by truly listening to each other. "I understand that these traditional songs are important to you," she said seriously, looking into my eyes, "and I also want your music to be respected. I think we can mix both styles so that everyone enjoys it and it has meaning for both of us." I replied. We listened, we discussed, and finally created a blended playlist. No one felt imposed upon or excluded. That small, simple moment became our first victory in rebuilding trust. Next, We discussed the traditional ceremonies I had once insisted on. She was initially hesitant, feeling out of place in a world she didn't fully know. But I gently explained, you don't have to be completely familiar. Just participate to understand and respect it. I'll be right there with you, guiding you through it. She nodded, a smile flickering with a mix of nervousness and determination. We decorated together, cooked traditional dishes together, and laughed at our mistakes. The laughter erased the tension left from previous arguments. I realized that love isn't just about sharing joy, it's about sharing fears and awkwardness. Another crucial part was family and friends. She had once been reluctant to participate in my family traditions, but now she was proactive, asking questions, learning, participating. Every small action showed her commitment and effort for our relationship, and I felt a deep gratitude. Meanwhile, I made an effort to connect with her friends, especially the childhood friend who had caused tension before. At first, I felt awkward and distant, but as we shared stories from childhood and laughed at harmless jokes, I realized he was simply a loyal friend who had always supported her. Gradually, a mutual respect formed between us, and this relieved her, making her happy. Every small step, seemingly minor, became an important victory in our relationship. It wasn't always smooth, but we learned that trust and compromise are cultivated day by day. In every detail, we also started practicing real listening in wedding planning. Instead of imposing our opinions, we would ask, "What do you think about this?" Or "How do you feel about that?" The simple act of listening reduced tension dramatically. For instance, choosing decoration colors could have sparked arguments. Previously, changing from my preferred color to hers would have caused conflict. This time, we blended the colors to incorporate both our tastes, creating a space that was both bright and elegant. While arranging flowers and ribbons together, I realized that even small details can symbolize compromise and teamwork. Planning the wedding no longer felt like a battle between two people. We divided tasks, surveyed venues together, tried on outfits, and chose menus side by side. Every action was discussed, evaluated, and agreed upon. As we laughed through difficult choices, I realized that the wedding process itself was nurturing our love, not just preparing a single day. One evening, as we reviewed the final guest list, she smiled, eyes sparkling with joy. "See, if we keep going like this, everything will be okay." I held her hand, warmth filling me. "I think so too." We're learning to love in a real way, not just talking about it, but actually doing it. The most important lesson in this phase was that a relationship cannot rely solely on emotions or personal desires. It requires respect, understanding, and most importantly, consistent actions to demonstrate change and commitment. These small victories, from agreeing on music, participating in ceremonies, to integrating with family and friends, built the foundation of trust, preparing us for the future. I knew that if we continued taking steps like this, any challenge in life or marriage could be overcome. Our story in this chapter wasn't about grand, glamorous moments. It was about simple, meaningful actions. It was proof that true love is nurtured every day, in small victories that often go unnoticed. Finally, I looked at her, smiling. We were no longer two individuals, fighting for our personal desires. We were a team, learning to trust, compromise, and cherish small victories, preparing for a life together and a wedding we could both be proud of. The weeks leading up to the wedding felt heavier than any argument we'd had before. Even though we had learned to compromise, listen, and trust each other, The pressure from family, friends, and society started to mount, pushing us into a tension we'd never experienced. One evening, I came home from work to find her sitting on the sofa, staring at her phone with a troubled look. I sat beside her and gently asked, "What's wrong?" She sighed. "My parents. They're not happy with some parts of our wedding plans. They think having my childhood friend as my best man, and me rejecting some of your traditional ceremonies, is all wrong." I could feel the wave of anxiety radiating from her, and at the same time, my heart tightened. External pressure is often more dangerous than internal conflict, because it strikes directly at one's confidence and trust. "I understand," I said, holding her hand. "But this is our wedding, not your parents' or anyone else's. What matters is what we want, not what anyone else thinks." She closed her eyes and took a deep breath. "I know, but I'm afraid if we don't follow what they want, they won't accept you, and everything will get complicated." I held her close, feeling our racing hearts. I understood that pressure from family, tradition, and social expectations can shake anyone, but I also knew that fear couldn't decide our future. The next day, we decided to face these issues directly. We met with her family and explained the importance of respecting each other's feelings and choices in a relationship. She stood by me, looking her parents in the eye. "Mum, Dad, I know you're worried, but this is our wedding. We've learned to compromise and respect each other. I want him to be by my side, and he respects our family traditions." At that moment, I saw determination in her eyes, with no trace of hesitation. I felt proud, not just because she spoke her mind, but because she affirmed the value of our love and relationship, overcoming fear of external pressure. However, the challenge wasn't over. Some friends and relatives from my side started questioning the shortened traditional ceremonies, the color scheme, and even the harmony between families. These questions, while reasonable, added stress to both of us. We sat down together, just the two of us, and established a rule. Any major decision would first be discussed between us, and only then, if necessary, seek outside input. This reduced tension and strengthened our unity. Another evening, while trying on wedding outfits, a small conflict arose. I wanted a sleek, classic suit. She wanted a slightly stylized look. Previously, this might have escalated into hours of argument, but this time we tried both, stood in front of the mirror, and laughed at our choices. We realized that compromise isn't complete surrender. It's finding a solution that satisfies both. The biggest challenge came from an unexpected source: our own fears. Sitting together late at night, talking about the upcoming wedding, we realized we were still anxious about failing or hurting each other. We had to confront this honestly, instead of avoiding it. "I'm scared I'll make you feel restricted or disappoint you," I admitted. "Me too," she replied. "I'm afraid we'll fight over small things again, and this time it won't be as easy to fix." We looked at each other in silence. Words couldn't solve all the worries, but the honesty itself was the foundation for real trust. In the following days, we decided to host a small mini-wedding with only close family and friends. It was a trial run. Could we cooperate, stay calm, and enjoy it together? Everything wasn't perfect, but the key was that we overcame the challenge together. Afterward, we sat on the balcony overlooking the city at night. I held her hand. "See, even with the difficulties, we're okay." She smiled, determination in her eyes. "You know, these challenges are what make us stronger. If we can get through this, everything else can be handled too. I realized that the biggest challenge before the wedding wasn't music, attire, or ceremonies. It was our growth in facing anxiety, pressure, and fear. Overcoming this challenge solidified our trust in each other and made it clear that love requires effort, patience, and continuous compromise. The days before the wedding became much lighter. No more tension, no more fear of outside opinions. We knew that love isn't about perfection, it's about standing strong together through the final test. And that made us feel more connected than ever. Finally, for the first time in weeks, we laughed together while thinking about our upcoming wedding. No fear, no tension, just excitement, love, and the solid belief that we could face any challenge together, even the hardest ones, before we said I do. The wedding day finally arrived, and the atmosphere was filled with both excitement and happiness throughout the apartment. We woke up early, sharing coffee together, exchanging looks full of joy and anticipation. Perhaps it was the weeks we had just endured with all the challenges and compromises that made this moment feel more meaningful than any other time in our relationship. When I saw her in her pristine white wedding dress, sparkling in the morning light, my heart raced. Not just because of her beauty, but because of the journey we had taken together. The arguments, the moments of stepping away to breathe, the efforts to understand each other and compromise on the smallest details, all of it had led to this moment. She held my hand, her eyes glistening with emotion. You know, today, I feel more at peace than ever. No more worries, no more fear. I smiled, furrowing my brow slightly. I feel the same. We've learned to love not just with words, but with actions. Today is proof of that. The ceremony began. Music played, blending traditional melodies I cherished with the modern songs she loved. As we walked down the aisle, all eyes from family and friends were on us, but what warmed my heart most was her walking beside me, holding my hand tightly, eyes full of trust. When exchanging rings, I stared at her. This moment wasn't just a ritual, it was a recognition of all the efforts and challenges we had overcome. We weren't perfect, but our love, patience, and mutual respect had built a solid foundation. After the ceremony, we stepped outside into the afternoon sun, hearing congratulations from everyone. I looked around and realized that everyone was happy, but what mattered most was that we had created our own happiness. No one could change that. No one could impose perfection on us anymore. One of the most memorable moments was when she called her childhood best friend, the one I had once worried about, to stand beside her as the groomsman. I stood there, watching them, and realized that my previous anxieties and jealousy had been unnecessary. He wasn't a threat. He was part of her memories, a witness to a lifelong friendship, and that deserved respect. During the reception, as we cut the cake together, all prior tensions seemed to vanish. I laughed with her, saying, "See, everything's fine." "We did it," she replied, "and we'll handle everything, not just today, but for the rest of our lives." Throughout the evening, we saw the power of understanding and compromise. Past conflicts and worries were now just stories to laugh about and learn from. I realized that a lasting marriage isn't one without conflict, but one in which we face challenges together. Later that night, when everyone had left and it was just the two of us, we sat together looking at the starry sky. I held her, feeling her heartbeat in sync with mine, and said, "You know, today isn't just the wedding day. It's proof of everything we've learned, everything we've endured, and everything we've promised to do together." She smiled, resting her head on my shoulder. You know, today I truly understand that love isn't just about sweet words or romantic moments. It's about the journey, patience, respect, and trust in each other. And I want to walk this journey with you. In that moment, I realized that all the past conflicts and challenges, from ceremony choices, color schemes, and attire, to the inclusion of her best friend, had become an inseparable part of our love story. Without them, today wouldn't have been complete, and we wouldn't have cherished each moment as much. Before going to bed, I held her hand and silently promised myself, we will face many challenges in life, but today we've proven that we can overcome anything as long as we're together, with unwavering love and trust. The wedding day ended, not just with parties, laughter, and congratulations, but with peace, happiness, and the feeling of being truly understood and valued. This was the most beautiful ending, not because everything was perfect, but because we had built a mature, lasting, and meaningful love together. After the wedding, when all the music, laughter, and sparkling lights had faded, we sat together in our small room, just the two of us, and the calm after the storm. The stressful weeks leading up to the wedding, the arguments over colors, ceremonies, and friends, were now only valuable lessons. We began to realize that love isn't just sweet words or romantic moments, but the way two people grow, learn, and respect each other together. She looked at me, her eyes full of warmth and respect. You know, I used to think marriage was just about a perfect wedding day, everything flawless. But now I understand that marriage is a journey. It's falling and standing back up together. I nodded, holding her hand. I feel the same. We've learned that not every decision will be immediately agreed upon. But if we listen to each other and understand each other, we can overcome anything. In the weeks that followed, we spent more time talking, not just about big life issues, but also about our daily habits, worries, and interests. We learned how to ask questions, truly listen, and respond gently instead of with anger or silence. This was the biggest step we hadn't realized we needed before. One important lesson we took away was about family and friends. Everyone in our lives mattered, but no one had the right to make decisions for us. Seeking advice is important, but the final decisions must come from the two of us, based on love, respect, and mutual understanding. We understood that maintaining clear boundaries between family, friends, and our relationship was essential to prevent unnecessary conflict. We also realized that flexibility and compromise are key to long-term happiness. Not everything will go exactly as one person wants, but if both are willing to give a little, share decisions, every problem can be solved. This isn't weakness, it's a sign of mature love. Another important point was understanding each other's culture and personal values. I learned to appreciate traditional ceremonies and understand why they mattered to him, and he learned to respect my feelings and wishes. We realized that love doesn't require complete similarity, but the ability to harmonize differences. During quiet evenings, we often recounted stories from before the wedding, from minor arguments to controversial decisions about color schemes or ceremonies. We laughed, sometimes frowned, but most importantly, we saw ourselves and each other grow through every challenge. Those experiences had transformed us from a couple in love into a mature couple who understands and respects each other. We also learned that no one is perfect, including ourselves. Loving someone doesn't mean blindly accepting everything. It's about learning to do better together day by day. Every disagreement and conflict became an opportunity to understand each other more deeply, strengthening our love. Another lesson was about communication and honesty. We realized that staying silent or pretending to agree just to avoid conflict only made problems pile up and grow bigger. We learned to express our feelings, worries, and desires honestly while still respecting each other, which helped us resolve issues before they became major conflicts. On our honeymoon, when we arrived at a place we had always dreamed of visiting together, I looked at her and realized that all the effort, patience, and understanding had created a deep, lasting, and meaningful love. Not because we had a perfect wedding, but because we had overcome every challenge together and learned how to love and live together fully. Finally, we wrote down goals and principles for our married life. Always listen and respect each other's feelings. Share decisions, especially on important matters. Respect differences in culture, preferences, and lifestyles. Maintain healthy boundaries with family and friends. See conflicts as opportunities to grow, not as threats. Looking back on 6 years of being together, from the early days filled with joy to the intense challenges before the wedding, we realized that every moment, sweet or difficult, was essential in forming a lasting love. We knew life would bring more challenges ahead, but the important thing was we had learned to face them together. And that is the greatest message. Love isn't about perfection. It's about the continuous effort to understand, accept, and grow together with peaceful hearts. Full of love and unwavering trust, we began a new journey, not just a life together, but a journey of constant love and growth.